Ladies and gentlemen, we are preparing to make our final descent into the Gray Avenue. The local time is what it is, and the temperature is good degrees. This is where curious minds, entrepreneurs, daredevils, hustlers, and problem solvers converge. On your left is the world of productivity and success, home of the unicorns themselves. For your safety and comfort, please remain seated with your seatbelt fastened until the captain turns off the fasten seatbelt sign. On behalf of the entire crew, I'd like to thank you for listening to the Gray Ave podcast, where all dreams do come true.
Hey, what's up, guys and girls? My name is Gray, and this is another episode of the Gray Ave podcast. I'm recording this on a Saturday evening. I have a football match in front of my monitor, and there's a football match between Stoke City and Arsenal. So I used to be like a super football or soccer fan a few years ago, and I played soccer when I was younger. But eventually, being an Arsenal fan, to those of you who understand soccer or who follow it, it hasn't been doing well for a couple of years now. So I got pissed off that it's something that I spend a lot of my time on. Even money sometimes to buy, the football jerseys to be like part of the team and stuff. But I cannot control it. So whatever the team does, however it performs, there's nothing I can do to improve it because they do whatever they want to do. So I decided to just remove myself from it because I can't control it. And recently I got back into it. And here I am again, disappointed that it's the nice sit down and put things together for a good podcast because I could just post like anything else, but I do not want to waste your guys' time. If I post something, it has to be worth your time and it has to be worth it for me as well, that I feel like I've done something helpful to someone else out there and it was stimulating to myself as well. Secondly, that I'm trying to change the model of the podcast. With some of you have been emailing me when I request that I need some feedback to know what I can do to improve this podcast. You have been emailing me and, for some of you who know me, would just tell me what you think could change. And I've done this for over a year now. So I can sort of see how to mold it to be the best as it can be. So number one, I wanted to change it, the sound quality, which hasn't been very bad, but I just want to improve on it. And I decided to find a sound engineer to be working on the podcast, doing the editing and all of that stuff. So I couldn't post last week because I had to go through the whole thing, find someone and, get to a point where we understand each other and I can work with them, as well as I want to change the timing. I want the podcast to be 30 minutes on average, which is not easy to do because I have really personal conversations with these people. And it's really hard to take away from all the things that we talk about and just keep it 30 minutes. It's very limiting, but it's also about me prioritizing and learning from my previous episodes, just I have to focus on the most important things. And I'll try to get to that. And sometimes is that I want to get something out of the guest that you could not just pull it out like that. You need to have a very good, opening conversation for some time. But we'll see how that goes. We can obviously, this is our own podcast, so we can always mold it to whatever we want it to be. And those are the two main reasons why I couldn't post last week. And the other stuff has just been dealing with life. I've been going through a couple of things. Nothing hectic, but it's just something to do with improvement and learning other things and setting up other important things as well. Some of them related to the podcast. And the other thing is life in general. For someone who just got out of the workforce, the whole 9-to-5 gig job, whatever you want to call it, you realize how hard it is to actually put things together. So I still have obligations or jobs that I have to do with other people, other companies, and then I have my own business to run. And those things are not easy. 1 week is just a span of 5 days. And you have to condense everything between these. And as well, I have to spend my own time on my own business. That means, it's like late nights. And besides that, it's things like working on the weekend, which is normal to me. It's the usual now. There's no such a thing as Saturday or Sunday, like I'm working every day. It's pretty tiring, but because I'm spending my time on things that I own, my own things, it really doesn't feel bad. Really, I don't even see it as work, but it is work at the end of the day. And I've been trying a few other things that I've been learning over, over the past year or two. I've been trying to invest in cryptocurrencies. For some of you know, we did some podcasts about Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these kind of things, which I started getting into it a lot, and I finally invested it. I invested in some of the coins, and it required me to do some research to understand what's going on out there and to understand the implications of all these technologies and what drives them, and to see if it's really worth it for me. So yeah, I did it. I sold my own car to actually invest in cryptocurrencies. And I'm not saying this as a recommendation to anybody out there, but that's what I did. If you think this is interesting enough to you to get into it, I would definitely recommend that you do your research. You can always holler at me if you want, then I can tell you exactly what I did or what you could do. And the other thing I've been dealing with is testing assumptions. So I had a couple of assumptions, and to give you an example, is that, when you start making a lot more income, the natural thing to do is to increase your spending, your consumptions, right? It's like that for a lot of people. I think probably you as well. I've been like that as well, whereas like, the more money that I start to make, then I would just automatically increase my spending and without even questioning that. It's like I'm making more. Why not just buy that thing or do this thing or do the other thing? So, what I decided to do was to challenge that by doing the opposite. The more my cash flow grows, I will lower down my spending. That means I had to move out of my apartment that I've been staying for like the last 4 years to move into a new place, which is like slightly cheaper. That other apartment, for example, had a gym, had a nice swimming pool. It was a very big flat. I enjoyed staying with different people because I would always change a flatmate. So I stayed with so many people, make a lot of great connections and friendships with my previous housemates or flatmates. And as well, I used to do couch surfing a lot. I used to host people because we had like a 2-bedroom apartment. And when I started the podcast, as you remember, I was doing couch surfing. And my previous tenant, Kanan, was there. We had people from all over the world staying with us. It was fun. It was like, what else would you want in your 20s? We did everything. We had all the fun. So I had to eliminate all of that and moved into just a very tiny room somewhere in Cape Town, in a very good area than the one I lived before. They're both kind of in the city, but this is a slightly better area that I'm living now. But I'm living in a place where I do not have the same freedom as I had, or I do not have a gym anymore. I don't have a swimming pool anymore. But it's cheaper and it's closer to my current office where I'm recording this podcast now. So it eliminated a lot of things, even commute. Now I just bought a bicycle and I ride to work, or I can just walk. And I've cut down my expenditures on like transport or just rent and all that stuff by I think about 36%. I did the math today. So you can see that's significant, but my cash flow is still increasing. So I think that's something worth testing, and it's not finalized to a point there like I can say, okay, this is approved. It's a strategy and how you can approach it. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It's really hard. It's tough because I cut down even my groceries, and I sold my car, as I said, to buy some cryptocurrencies. And that's still a challenge as far as transport, but I use Uber a lot. And for most of my commute is still around the city, which is where I live. So it's like it's a minimal amount of money you can spend just to go around. If I have to go for a very long distance trip, like 40 kilometers out of town, then that's gonna hit me. Even though I did that last week, I went to Stellenbosch. It's like a shooting town somewhere in Cape Town and like a bunch of wineries and stuff. I just wanted to have a weekend out of town. So that costed me a lot. But if I did the math still per month, I still spent more money when I had a car than right now. And I used to, come up with useless trips just because I could. Right now it's hard. If I get invited to a couple of things, the answer usually is no, because I know that I have to go through the transport thing if it's very far from me. So that's one thing that I just wanted to share with you guys. That's something that you would test as well, play with that as well on your own side. Say, look, okay, I'm increasing my income. Then instead of increasing your spending, do the opposite. And it pays, I have to tell you, it's really exciting. But now I have to tell you a side effect to that is that I never had a gym membership because my previous flat had a gym in it. So I used to go gym in there. And now I do not have it. And I never had a discipline of waking up or in the evening going to the gym somewhere or paying for a gym membership. So I haven't been in the gym for the last 2 months that I moved into a new place, but I'm still dealing with it. Now I'm still considering should I get a gym membership, which is super expensive as far as the contract is concerned. I looked at the Virgin Active contract. I don't think it's worth it. Now I'm contemplating on just getting it anyway, or I can just go into jiu-jitsu because it costs about the same, but I do not have a binding contract as with Virgin Active guys. These guys are like totally mad with their contracts and stuff. Everybody always have to be careful with what they're doing. And one thing that I want to share as well, but well, if you have anything you could share on that, on gym or what I can do for exercise wise, you can probably let me know and share your thoughts and what you recommend. And on one of the podcasts, I told you guys that I have a startup that I'm working on, and that's still going on. And it's one of the things that's taking my time as well. The phase that I'm working on now are the hardest phases. And once this is through, I think things will get a little better and I'll have a clear vision of exactly what it's going to look like. So I am not going to share too much about it now. But all I can say is next week I'm flying to this week, Friday, I'm flying to Joburg, and I've set up a couple of meetings there. It's for my startup, and I'm meeting some key people that will definitely help idea to come to fruition with time. So I just hope for the best there. And if you're listening to this and you're in Johannesburg, totally let me know if you will be available to meet for coffee or I don't drink beer, but we can go into something fun out there. You can show me around. I do not know Joburg that much. So feel free to holler at me on my Facebook, on my Instagram, and all the social media links, or you can email me from the podcast. I totally appreciate that. And just to get back to the hustle thing, for all you guys who are trying to leave your job and become a little more independent and do your own thing, from my experience, this is what I can share, is that there is a difference between actually having a business or being a freelancer. And a lot of people out there are freelancers. Or what I mean by that is that you can get out of the job and be independent, but if your model is still based on you getting work from other people, that requires you to actually do the work, then you're definitely a freelancer. And it's not scalable. I've done that for quite some time, and it doesn't really work. So if you're at the verge of you're still on a gig, like a full-time job, I would recommend that you try to invest in a few things or come up with some sort of way where you can generate income without you not having to do anything. Because being a freelancer is hard. It's really, really hard. It's like it takes a lot of effort. And for some people, especially who have never even run, any kind of business, you have to do a lot of admin on your own. and mostly you don't have like hiring skills, or you don't know how to outsource because you just don't have the confidence, or you just don't know people a lot because you don't have a large network, since your whole model has been working for someone else, and he goes out there or she goes out there, get all the jobs and the contracts, and then you just do one thing. Whereas you're doing freelance, it's just you. So even if you chase multiple jobs, you can get a lot of clients. But if you're the one to do the job, and that's why the clients are giving you the job, you are a little bit on a disadvantage that you put yourself on, because you can't do anything, you can't do everything, so if you reach to that point, what I started to do is just to outsource some of this stuff. But I know what I do best, so I can quality control a little better, and I can release a product or some work or some artwork and give it to my client, and it would be approved that I did it because I made sure I supervised the product. And you can do this, in many ways. You can use your local labor, or you can do it online using virtual assistants. There's a lot of website on the podcast with Thomas Renaviches. We talked about this. So that's something that I started to do myself, so that I get out of the whole loop of like, okay, everything is dependent on me. I've done it for a while and it's not scalable. Where, say, I'm traveling right now at the end of the week, at the end of this week, if and I have projects still going on, if I had to rely on me to just do anything else, then obviously I would not be able to do the rest. There will be some work that's not done, but like now I can still travel, and there are people from wherever they are, it doesn't matter. They're doing the work, and I can just be on my laptop and, supervise if everything is going well. So, if you're, whether you just started freelancing or just getting out of the gig, please make sure that you set up yourself in a very smart way, so that you're not you're not the main player only in the game. You have to hustle in a way that it's split out, and you're just the nucleus, not the electron as well, if you know what I mean. So that's something to think about. And for you guys who have been doing this for a while, maybe you can give some advice and stuff like that. And one thing I can recommend is to find partners, and you do that by, go to a lot of events. I can never recommend that a lot. I've grown my network so much by just going to, like, Startup Grind, the Silicon Cape in Cape Town where I live, and there are a couple of other entrepreneur events. So please make sure you go out there and communicate. That's all I can say. This is from my experience. And another thing that I would like to share at this point is that, well, I can speak from my personal experience. When you grow up, just, and you grow up, you go through it, wherever you went through, whether you went to college or not, and you start working, all you know is to work for money, and you make the money and you keep it. So giving money to someone feels like giving money away, unless you're buying something physical. For some people, they see it like that. But one of the things that you need to pay attention to is time. So it takes some kind of some kind of strength or some time just to learn the art of hiring people to do something that you can do on your own, but just to buy time so that you have that time. Because you end up hoping to do everything else by yourself, and then you miss deadlines, or just things are not organized, or then you have to work all night. You go home at 4 in the morning. That happens to me a lot. So recently I've just learned to, like, being able to just accept to get someone on board, pay them, and they do the thing the right way, and I just say it. Obviously it's related to my previous point where I was saying learn how to outsource, or set up other hustles. But this is more about time saving. If you want to write a CV, if you really have to, for me it's hard to write a CV because I've never gotten a job because of my CV. It's like I never had to send a CV to someone, as far as I can remember. I like ask people for coffee when I was asking for jobs back then. I used to ask people for coffee, and then we meet and we talk about it usually. So if somebody says, write me a CV and all these kind of things, I usually just download my LinkedIn and send it to them. And sometimes they don't like it and they want more. Then I have to write it, but then I don't want to do that. It feels like a lot of work, and I keep postponing and postponing it and I never write it. So what I realized with tasks like those, this is a very, maybe not a very good example, but what I do, I just find someone, pay them, and they do it. You lose money, of course, but you have bought yourself some time and a peace of mind. So yeah, that's something you guys can contemplate on. I think the earlier anybody can learn this, the better. And some of my mentors started telling me about this quite a long time ago, and like I couldn't understand it because I wasn't on that point yet. And now I'm there where I have limited time, so many things to do, and I have to leverage some of my activities. And lastly, I just want to ask you guys and girls to help me improve the podcast by telling me exactly how we can continue to modify it to make it as best as we can. Like how we can do that is you just have to email me. If you want, you can put comments as well. Totally appreciate it. Or you can holler at me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, like all these social networks. My name is Gray Jabesi, GreyJabesi, on every platform. You can just search that, except Reddit. And you can just let me know how we can improve this podcast and how we can make some things cooler, or we can remove some things and add more interesting things. I mean, whatever you want. I'm here to make the best podcast, that would make the best of us. We don't want to waste anyone's time and shit like that. And with that, I will leave you to it. Enjoy your hustle, do what you have to do. I will be doing what I'm always doing here. And the podcast goes on. I apologize for last week, but it was for the better. And this coming week, definitely there will be a badass guest that I'll bring on. You will be surprised. And that was the end of the conversation. And right before you go, I just want to remind you to support the podcast. And how are you going to do that? It's not by giving me money or anything. I just need you to share the podcast to as many people as you can. And that's just by sharing on your Facebook feed or Twitter once. That helps me a lot. You can also improve the podcast by giving it a 5-star rating on iTunes and leave a review. Just write something nice a little bit and give it a 5-star. And you have to subscribe as well on whatever platform that suits you. And that can be iTunes, can be Stitcher Radio, can be SoundCloud. It can be from my website, www.greyjabesi.com. That's GreyJabesi.com. Then there you can subscribe, and I will be emailing you as soon as I have a new podcast coming out, or I have an interesting guest coming on and I need to ask questions for the audience. I can email you and say, look, this is coming up. What do you think I should ask him? And I do have a lot of interesting podcasts coming up. So with that, I will leave you to it. You can also follow me on social media. Actually Gray Jabesi on all the social medias. Grey. Well, social medias is not really a thing. On social media, GreyJabesi. Gray Jabesi on everything. You should be able to find me out there. And with that, thanks so much for listening again. I hope to see you on the next episode.